All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our GLSE session on best practices in applying to jobs in the summer or research and graduate school. So best practices as an undergrad, how do you optimize your marketing ability to the world out there to go wherever you want to go? Let's see if I can share my screen. All right, Natasha, can you see that? Yep. Okay, all right. So welcome everyone, and hopefully by the end of this workshop you'll get some tips and tools on how to apply to wherever you want to be, whether that is a job after graduation or your summer research or graduate school. And if you have any questions, you can contact me at nana.lee@utoronto.ca, and hopefully we'll get to all of your questions today. So thanks for attending. I'm going to start with a story because I like stories. Here's two ladies here, Jenny and Miranda. Miranda's on your right and Jenny's on the left. Jenny is actually a graduate from the University of Toronto Biochemistry Specialist Program. And if you guessed, they are giving a TED Talk. And they were giving a TED Talk, probably looks like they're still in their 20s. And how did this happen? So this is sort of the end result of all their endeavors and still going on today. So let's take a look at their life and how they got here. So let's look at Miranda's story, and Jenny's story is very similar, but Miranda was always interested in growing her own vegetables, so in gardening. And when she got to high school, she realized her high school did not have a compost program. So her passion in life was dealing with sort of this climate issue and sustainability issue. So when she got to her high school and realized there's no compost program, she took it upon herself to start one. She found all the teachers that would support her, the city, how they could come pick up the compost, like all the logistics to start one in her school. And this spread to other schools in her neighborhood. And then when Miranda got into university, she was really intrigued by microbiology, the molecular basis of living things. And then she pursued a master's degree at University of Pennsylvania, where she also did a similar thing in that she realized, hey, I'm interested in molecular biology, but I also am dabbling in engineering, entrepreneurship, and philosophy. So she kind of did this her own program kind of thing, like it was a molecular biology, but she also took a few other courses and other programs as well. And again, it's going with what she felt strongly inclined to do. And then a couple of years later, so Miranda and Jenny are best friends. They were walking along the beach one day and they saw this plastic coming in. So they grabbed a garbage bag and decided to fill up the garbage bag. And then there was more plastic coming in. So then they got another garbage bag. And after 30 minutes, they had 2 full garbage bags full of plastic. And they were very discouraged. And they said, okay, we want to do something about this. And so Jenny and Miranda both did all the research on finding who are the top researchers in plastic bioengineering and plastic degradation and who's out there, right? So for you as science students here at the University of Toronto, you know how to do this as well. Like go to PubMed, go to all these resources that you know, and find out who are the experts in the field. So they did that, and they found basically their scientific advisory board. So they found their professors and other researchers that were willing to help out in this sort of plastic question they're trying to tackle. The other thing Miranda did was when she got to Penn, she realized there's no TEDx talk series. Right? So here at University of Toronto, we do have one, but when she got to Penn, they didn't have one. So again, she started something, right? She started that at Penn. So you kind of hear the story of Miranda and Jenny. They're starting things. They find something that there was a lack of, and they took that and turned it around, made it to their own advantage and created something out of that. So they'll go back to this plastic thing. Now what they've done is both Jenny and Miranda, they've discovered who all the plastic experts are, and they've co-founded a company called BioSelection. And in BioSelection, it's their mission to turn their plastic pollution into a value and to enable this technology to become globally accessible. So what does that mean? Is they're taking down the plastic that's hard to degrade, and then they're converting it into little other plastic pellets so that other technology companies can reuse those plastics. And as you can imagine, it takes a lot of chemistry, some biochemistry, engineering, and this is what their company is on. Now, it's not to say that everyone in this room, they're going to start your own company. You all have the potential to do that, but everyone in this room has a potential to create your own career path. Everyone here. And what I want to talk about is, let's just look at the numbers first off. If we look on the left-hand side, this data was taken from the Higher Education Council of Ontario. If you look at the undergraduates, their field of studies on the left-hand side, you have everything from math all the way down to physical life sciences, to humanities, business management. Now let's just zone in on the 8% of you that are in physical and life sciences in this purple box here. Now, if we blow up that in terms of what happens after you graduate from undergraduate, and if you look on the right-hand side are all the different careers that you have all gone into, the alumni have. So let's take a look. 10% have gone on to health, 6% natural and applied sciences, 10% teachers and professors, 14% in sales and service, 13% in management, 17% in business, finance, and administration. So what this thing is telling you here, what this graphic is telling you, is you can do whatever it is that you wish. So just because you majored in cell biology, it doesn't mean you'll be a cell biologist. You could be, but it doesn't mean you have to be. It's whatever your interests, whatever you are good at, whatever you care about, and wherever your interests are, that's where your undergraduate degree can take you. So keeping that in mind, okay, let's see. I'm going to share this doc in the chat. I want to see who's in the room. Okay. Okay, we have 134. Okay, so this, you should access this form if your last name goes from A through L. Okay, if your last name is M through Z, I'm going to send you another link, because if we have more than 75 people on one sheet, it kind of crashes it. So I'll send you another link. So A through L is going to be there, and you don't have to, you can put in a nickname if you like. And if you can answer all those questions under column E, and you can stop at column F, because that's going to be later on. And I'm going to send another link for the other M through Z. Okay, so if your last name starts with M through Z, you're going to be in the second doc. And I'm going to wait until people have filled out under column E. I'm going to be looking at these docs just to see who's in the room and what you hope to be planning to do after graduation, and the questions or specific questions you had coming into this workshop. So hopefully I can cover them all. Okay, you cannot see the A through A link. Okay, so let me just send that again. A through L's. Okay, don't worry about the CAR statement yet, that's later on. So A through L's, there's your link. If you're not A through L, please use the other sheet, because then other people can't get on. They're supposed to be on. Please let me know if you can't access the sheet. Okay, and I'll send the link for M through Z. M through Z. A through L. Now, throughout the talk today, if we don't get to your question that you put in E, then I will put the answer in this document later on today, so you could look it up. This document will be open all day. So, because I want to make sure everyone gets their question answered. Okay. It's not working for me. So if it's not working for anyone, Ivanka, maybe you can write in the chat on where do you hope to go after. So your last name, first name, but in there, but your department, your plans for graduation, and what do you hope to take away after today's workshop? So what is your primary question? Yeah, so for those of you that can't access the sheet for whatever reason, you can put it in the chat. Your plans for after graduation and a question about your career development. And please don't worry about column F or G right now. It doesn't make sense because we haven't covered it. So you're going to stop after column E. I'm just going to scan through and make sure we answer these questions. Okay. I'll wait until people have populated most of E. There's some good questions. Okay, mostly about research and contacting professors, how to get research, medical careers, how to approach research opportunities. All right. Okay, so primarily that's what I'll be covering, and hopefully we'll get to that. And thank you also for writing in the chat. Okay, trying to get back onto Zoom here. Okay. Okay. So with all of your, can you still see my shared slides, Natasha?
I can see only your PowerPoint.
Yeah, my PowerPoint. You can see who is in the room.
The room. Yep. Everything is at the
Okay,
top.
awesome. Thanks.
I'm still, yeah.
Okay. All right, so keeping those in mind, I just scanned through everyone's primary goals. I want you to think about the 3 steps of creating your own career path. So whether it's medical school, research career, graduate school, or a job, you all have to do the same thing in that these 3 steps, and these are iterative processes. Okay, so you're gonna keep coming back to it. Okay, so the first step is reflection. Reflection means, what are you good at? What do you care about? And what do you love to do? So if you know for a fact that you get all squirmish, you know, in a hospital setting, it may not be a medical career. If you know a fact that you love to talk about science, maybe it's science outreach, right? So having this sort of reflective tool, and I'm going to put a resource in the chat. If you go to Science Careers IDP, if you go to Science Careers IDP, there's a tool for you to look at this. So you fill out your skills, your values, your your interests. And then it'll actually give you a whole list of various science careers that you may want to venture into. Okay. Yes, please join as a panelist. We asked you to join as a panelist because we're having these activities. Thank you. Okay, after this reflection bit, we have to take all this, what we reflected on, and create these meaningful engagements. So meaningful engagements for potential researchers going to be maybe a lab environment. But even before you get to a lab, how do you find that lab, or how do you even figure out if you want to work in a lab? The most #1 tool for all of you right now is called the informational interview. Does anybody know what an informational interview is, or has anyone done one? You can write in the chat. Have you done an informational interview? Yes. Anyone? Anyone done an informational interview? Yes. Okay. Riley, do you want to tell us your experience with an informational interview? What is it and what did you do? You can unmute yourself.
Yeah, basically you just kind of meet with like an industry representative or just someone in the field that you're interested in. And you kind of just like ask them about their experiences and try to just get more information out of them so you can kind of learn just about the industry, about them, what a day in the life is like for them, stuff like that.
Yeah, thank you, Riley. That's exactly it. So if you're curious about graduate school, request an informational interview with a PhD student. Request an informational interview with a professor, with a medical student, with an intern, with a resident. How did they get to where they are? And because this information is not on a web, it's not on any website, these personal stories on who they got help from, how they were mentored, what did they wish they would have done before, all this stuff is the people skills. Right? And just as Riley was saying, is you have to contact some of these people and figure out, and don't feel like, oh, you know, why would they want to talk to me? A lot of people have that. They say, why would they want to talk to me? I'm just starting out and they're already established. They already got into med school or they're already in their PhD program. Why would they want to talk to me? Imagine if you're on campus and a first-year student, first week of school, comes up to you and says, I'm really sorry, but could you tell me where Hart House is? Chances are you will let them know because you're just a nice person, hopefully, right? You're not expecting anything in return, or any money or a coffee or anything like that. It's just because they asked for directions. So think of this as requesting directions in life. Okay? You're trying to figure out where you're going, and to get that, you have to ask people that have already been there. So the best resource to find these potential people, I will give you some clues. There's a website called 10,000 Coffees, and you go to U of T Hub. So on there, all of the alumni that have said, yes, I will be open to be a mentor, they're on there. So you can go on there and just select based on their location or based on their field and find people there as well. Another good resource is your friendly LinkedIn. So if you have a nice polished LinkedIn website, you can do a search on, okay, I want to find an immunology graduate that is now in management consulting. Find these people and look at how their career has progressed. Right? They've put it all out there. You can see, oh, this is how they did it. This is how they got there. So the meaningful engagement, step one, is informational interview, especially if you don't know what this career entails. Because you could do an informational interview and just knock that career out of your list. Say, wow, I had no idea that was what it was about. I definitely know I don't want to do that. Or it could be after you've spoken to this person, you can say, oh, wow, that sounds really cool. I want to know more. And then you can ask that person that you just had the informational interview with, is there anyone else in your network that I can contact? And this is you growing your network in what you're interested in. So that's something that you want to start with, is the informational interview. And this is the same thing for any place you want to go. And then this will lead into opportunities. For example, they may say, hey, you're interested in graduate school. We have an opening in the lab, in our lab. Why don't we have a sit down and have a coffee chat? So if you want to be working in a lab, the summer or the term, the best thing to do is figure out, okay, who are the graduate students in the lab, talk to the graduate student. And if you're really interested, then you can contact the supervisor, or you can start with a supervisor. But the main thing is figuring out what you want to do, right? That's the reflection piece. If you say, I'm going to do research on Alzheimer's, find all the labs that are doing research on Alzheimer's, then read the papers. Find the papers that really light up for you, that really say, hey, that's really cool stuff. And then write to the supervisor or to the senior postdoc or the senior graduate students, I'm thinking of joining, I'm thinking of applying to your lab, or I'm thinking of working in this field. Can we have a 30-minute informational interview on this topic? Or if you're applying directly, you can say, dear Dr. So-and-so, I read your article, the review article on Alzheimer's disease, how it affects our population, and here's what I want to be working on. Here's what I propose I want to do for your lab. So it's not enough to say, I want to work in a lab, right? Because professors get that all the time. What you have to say is, why do you want to work in that lab? And, what can you bring to the lab? And this is where it gets tricky, because you may have, Raha, I'll get to your question in a second. You may have, 20 students applying. So how does your application reach the top of the pile? Is if you write a great cover letter stating why you want to work in the lab. And it can't be, I've wanted to work in this your lab my entire life, and it can't be that same opening statement for every PI you apply to. It has to be very specific on why that particular lab. I read your latest article on such and such, and I hope to look into the effects of whatever on your expression system, right? So it has to be very specific on what you want to do for them. And what do you bring? You can say, I bring my teamwork skills that I have in my other work experiences. If this is your first lab setting, you're not going to have a lab experience to bring forth, but you can say, I worked in student communities, I worked in student groups, I have teamwork skills. They really look for that, right? If you have EQ skills you've developed, EDI skills you've developed, all these what are called core competency skills. That's what they're looking for. If you have coached a soccer team for 12 years, wow, you can work with people. If you have taught music for 10 years, you've established a skill, now you can mentor people. Like, these are skills that they're looking for as well. So don't feel like on your resume, you can only write sciencey stuff for a science thing. So Ra's questions, are these chances available to students who graduate? I will be graduating this spring and I'm worried I might lose this chance. Anyone can apply if you have an undergraduate degree to a lab, because you don't know what experiences or what positions they have available. Right now, volunteering is a little bit, because of COVID, there's not a lot of volunteering. However, there are some programs available. There are programs where I think some of the deadlines are due this month. So biochemistry has a program. Every department has a program for research. Say Kids has a program. You just contact the department or their website. They'll have it there. But I find it more effective is you figure out what you want to do research on, whatever discipline, find the supervisor and write an effective cover letter. Let's go up to some of these other questions. Should we mention these soft skills only on the resume or also in the cover letter? The soft skills will actually get to the resume cover letter in the later part, and how much the PI is actually taught. Okay, GPA. If you have a solid B, you should be good for research. Okay, and how much the PI actually value these skills over lab experience. Okay, so if you have, let's say, lab experience over the summer, and you applying to a lab and your cover letter is not that strong, I would take a student that has a very strong cover letter and people skills over someone that's already had the experience. And so it depends on the supervisor, but I want a team player in my lab. Right? That's really important. And I'm going to scroll up here. Okay, would a story-based approach to cover letters help you stand out? Or is it strictly the content, what you bring, you want to work, that's most important. So your cover letter is about your intentions of why you want to work there. It's not about what you've done before. It's a little bit about how what you've done before got to where you are now in applying for that role. Okay, So let's say you're applying for a lab that does genetic mapping on a pediatric illness. And this is your first time applying. What can you say? Because you don't have any previous lab experience, but you do have the lab experience you have in your undergraduate training. So you can say, I bring my research experience as a biochemistry specialist, my teamwork experience through my years of volunteering at the community center, whatever that may be. Okay. So now you're bringing you as a package and my interest in this particular disorder that your lab is working on. I read your last article on this, and this is how I want to help your lab. Okay. So that's how you want to frame your cover letter, okay. Not a list of what's already done. It's because it's already on your resume. Should the cover letter be an actual email? The cover letter should be an attachment as a PDF. But in the actual email, you know, they have to have a reason why they want to open that up, right? So the actual email may read, definitely, Dear Dr. So-and-so. Start with a very polite salutation. And very short, maybe 5 or 6 sentences of why you want to work for that lab and what you're bringing to them. And then your cover letter can be a more an extended version of that. And also in the email, if you know somebody that they know, if there is a connection, even if I conducted an informational interview with one of your graduate students and I was highly excited to join your lab or to apply for your lab and name that graduate student, then they can go to that graduate student and say, hey, I noticed that you talked to this student, what did you think of them? Or if you know that their graduate student TA'd you in a course you were taking and you did well, that's where you can say, you know, so-and-so knows me who works in your lab. Or let's say you know their colleague that they've collaborated with somehow. Right? So this is where you put in that connection, connect the dots. Or even if I majored or I specialized in your program and you taught me in Biochem 242. Like all these connections help whatever helps them remember you by connection they already have should be in the actual email. Okay. So the meaningful engagement piece first is the informational interview. The second is actually the job shadowing or the co-op or the internship. And you get those from, many students get them from having these informational interviews. Is that meaningful engagement is the next step, which is the paid job. And then the next step is storytelling, which we've just touched upon, is how do you market yourself? How do you market yourself when you're networking, when you're writing your cover letter, your resume, when you're applying for med school applications? How do you tell your story in a compelling way? And that's what we're going to talk about in the next couple of slides. Okay, so the first step of reflection, I gave you a tool, the Science Careers IDP. The other thing that's a very, it's a class-based thing that I do with my students is figuring out these 3 things. Is what you love to do. So what makes you feel alive? What do you like to do in your free time? This is called purpose compass or wayfinding. The second is their strengths and skills. What are you good at or would like to become good at? So if you know you want to go to graduate school, you want to become really good at, say, solving protein structure, then that's what you're going to be, right? And it's usually what's traditionally recognized in grades. So if you got straight A's in math, you're probably good at math. That's a strength that you have. And the third part is what you care about. So what problems do you feel moved by? Think about your community, the family, the country, the wider world. Because for you to get up in the morning and do the work that you do, you have to care about it. Right? You have to care to be there. It can't just be, oh, because it looks good on my resume or because it's what's expected of you from your profs, from your parents. You have to care about it. And when you put these 3 together, this is your purpose compass. This is where you want to be. And then later on, you have to get paid for it, right? But as a student, you can create this world of your purpose compass with many student activities and many initiatives that you can do as part of your portfolio of going into your dream career. So I'll give you an example. So what we do in class, if this was a class, I would transfer all these ideas. So what you're good at, what you care about, and what you love onto these sticky notes. So we would brainstorm all these things. Okay, so for 1 minute, you would brainstorm each category, and then we'd actually put these categories together in trios, like so. And then for this student, they cared about climate. Their strength was their social, and they loved to write. Okay, so now you have a trio. And then in teams, you brainstorm ways to create meaningful engagements to go towards any career. So this example was, I could start a blog with my friends about tips for a career and lifestyle with science facts. And you can start this blog at any time. It doesn't have to be after you graduate, or it's just at any time. So as you're going through undergrad, you don't want to just get the transcript that you need. You want to create a portfolio. You want to create an experience full of meaningful engagements. And some could be created like this, brainstorming ideas. Some could be through interviews.
That's really fun.
Hi all, if you can all mute yourself, that would be great. Some can be through informational interviews. Some could be through that experience you've had with a professor. Right? So I'll give you an example. Student A walks in to a class with 500 people, does all the work, does everything that's required, gets the A, gets the 93 average. Okay. Student B walks in, does all the work, fulfills expectations, gets the 93 average. But student B walks into this professor's office during office hours and talks about either the homework or talks about either a paper they had recently written. And it has to be mutually interested, right? So you have to be interested as well. It just can't be a random thing. Like if you say, hey, I really like that professor's work, make an office hour. This is, a spinoff of the informational interview. Ask questions about their paper. Now this student B has had connections with his supervisor or with this professor. So now it's not just the requirements of university, but you are creating a meaningful engagement through people. And that's really important because now this professor is going to say, hey, Riley came into my office. We taught him about this meaningful engagement. And I know now Riley is interested in this research. I have a colleague down the hallway that's doing this and they're hiring in the summer. They're going to contact Riley. You're not going to get this through the internet or through any sort of social media. It's going to be through the people. Okay, so that's how you want to create these things. And it's up to you to do that. So same thing happened with me when I was in first year. I was in a psychology class of 500 students, and I decided what was important for me was to address the stress as an undergraduate. So I wrote an article about stress, the stress and the flight and fight response, and I interviewed my psychology professor for this article. And we got into a rapport, and he said, this is great. You're doing this article. You have an interest in this topic. How would you like to work for me as a research assistant in the summer? If I didn't write the article, if I didn't contact him, none of that would have happened. So it's up to you to create those people skills. Any questions about meaningful engagement before I move on? If we are interested in labs and institutions like Sick Kids, where do we find graduate students that specifically work at the labs we're interested in? Best thing to do is look at the papers that they've written. So and lab page. Thanks for now. So if you go to the lab page, many PIs will have all their students there. If they don't have that, then you find the last paper they've written and see who the co-authors are. And then you can see who's on that list. Okay. See if there's any other questions. Oh, can people still hear me? Somebody was saying that the speaker was cutting out.
I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, how could one approach wanting to set up an informational interview with a PI and they want to eventually send their cover letter following the meeting? Okay. Yeah, so what you can do so for now, many PIs are making decisions about their summer personnel. So right now, what I would do is send an application and send a cover letter. So they'd want to speak to you, write a compelling cover letter. And then at the interview, you're going to be doing sort of that flipped informational interview as well. But right now, because it is already January, I would say it's more important to get your application out there. Okay. For graduate school, however, this is a great time to do informational interviews with various professors, various graduate students, and various postdocs. what year were you when you wrote your article? That sounds exciting, but I don't know if I can do that. So that I was in first year, but you can do that at any time. You can do that even after you graduate. You can do that in your third. It doesn't matter what year you're in. Okay. Yeah. Where would you suggest to look for lab or summer job opportunities? So the best place to go right now is the departmental websites. So if you want to go to, let's say, for example, biochemistry, there's information on their website. If you go to the undergraduate undergraduate website, but you have to go to the specific department. And then there's programs called the Amgen Scholars. And Natasha, I don't know if those applications have closed already, the Amgen, do you know?
I believe it's February 1st deadline.
Yeah. So there's the Amgen Scholars program as well. And Natasha just said it's due February 1st through the GLSC website. You can go there. Have you seen communications between students and faculty has decreased significantly due to COVID restrictions? I wouldn't think it's decreased. You just have to move it over to a virtual platform. And what I've done is gone on walking meetings outside. So I don't think it has decreased. You just have to shift like we're doing with everything else. Okay. Do you have any advice for sending an email to say you're interested in continuing with somewhere you've already worked? Like when the potential to continue working is there, but you have to be the one to initiate it. Okay, well, if you are in the lab already, I would not write an email. You would just request a coffee chat with the supervisor or the boss and have that conversation about after your term there, you can continue on. Okay, but definitely, yes, you have to initiate it. All right, so I'm gonna go on here. If I, for some reason, missed your question, because there's a lot of questions filing in, you can add it to the spreadsheet and I will make sure to answer it later on in the day. All right, so storytelling we've talked a little bit about some of these tools. Definitely be on LinkedIn for sure. And if you don't know quite what to write as an undergraduate, there are tons of examples already there that are undergraduates. You can look at Jennifer or Miranda's LinkedIn, right? The two ladies that I talked about earlier on. Business cards. Now, right now, the physical business cards may not be as pertinent, but what you want to do is have a business card at the end of your email. So if you're writing to a professor, they know who you are. They're going to say, Natasha, can you put that link in for the spreadsheet again for Maggie? Thank you. They're going to say, who is this person? Now, if you just sign it with your name, they're not going to know who you are, what program you're in, or anything like that. So if you have a business card for anyone, what would it be? Your name, your first name, your last name, the title of who you are. So right now you're either, let's say, immunology, double major of immunology and pharmacology. That's going to be under you, right? So double major or biochemistry specialist. Okay. And so you're going to have that. And if you're working in a lab already, you're going to have a physical address of the lab. You're going to have the lab phone. Now, if you're applying and you want the supervisor to know your cell phone number, then you can put that there, but it's not for everyone to see. And your email and your LinkedIn URL. And under the title, if you have any other activities you're doing that you are that you've been involved heavily, such as you're the president of student council or you are an editor for a magazine, you would also write that as well, but no more than 2 titles. Okay, just so that people know what you're working on. And if you have a nice LinkedIn profile, they can just click on your URL and see who you are. Okay. The third piece is having a professional email. And that is having the proper salutation, dear Dr. So-and-so or dear Director so-and-so, having a very short, succinct email of why you're writing to them and who you are in that business email address, in the signature that we talked about. And then there's networking. Right now it's virtual networking. And so right now it's really up to you to find the people that you want to talk to and be very specific and strategic about setting up those informational interviews. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the documents that go out, because that's what really matters at the end of the day. It's how do you get to the top. So the one thing I want to tell you is called CAR statements. Effective resumes tell stories. And what does a CAR have to do with a resume? So the acronym stands for challenge or context, action, and results. So let's take a look at an example here. So what you want to do is tell stories of your time here as an undergraduate. If you can look back on the 4 or 5 years and say, what impact did you make, not just in academics, but with the student body or the community, or anything that you've done that you want to illustrate or you want to demonstrate that you have a core competency skill in. So for example, this student, I asked, what was your impactful story that you want to tell? So they tell me this story of, as a first ever TED Talk, I researched social organizations on campus, publications on NPOs, organized a working group, implemented feedback, practiced my talk with them several times. I gave the talk, and with follow-up conversations, I learned that several students had started their own groups revolving around social innovation and nonprofit ideas. Wow, what a cool story. That's an awesome story. But you can't tell this, it's too long, right? On a one-page resume, so on a resume, when people ask for a resume, it's 1 page for 10 years of experience. So usually if you're undergraduate, you're going to have a 1-page resume. This is too long of a story. So then how do you tailor this to what the employer is looking for? Okay, so it doesn't matter if it's med school or grad school or a job, look at the job description. What is med school asking for? What is grad school asking for? What is the biotech communication role asking for? Really read the job description. So for this particular student, they wanted to highlight the fact that they can motivate people, because in the job description, that's what the job description was asking for. We want someone that can motivate and move people. So clearly when you read this story, that's definitely there. Now, amongst other things, presentation skills, leadership skills, organization skills, but they want to highlight motivate. So what you want to find out, or what you want to hone in on, is what is a verb that you want to highlight for the employer. That's the tricky part. And then rewrite the story in such a way to encompass the CAR statement. So the context of the challenge was to engage youth in their own advocacy. Developed and presented a TED U of T talk, this is the action piece, on developing federal policies utilizing a relatable personal story. And what's the result section? This is in green, resulting in 5 student groups to be inspired to start their own advocacy programs. So the student is telling the same story, but they're rewriting it in a way that's more succinct and to the point. So when people read this, they'll say, wow, they inspired 5 other student groups. So that's what you want to be doing. And if you take a 8.5 by 11 page, your CAR statement should probably go across the page 2, no more than 3 lines. And this is what this ends up doing. So when you're looking at these CAR statements, you want to ask, what have you done that's unique or special? What skill do you want to highlight? What are the concrete actions you took to achieve the outcome? What was your impact? And you check for the CAR linkage. Just so that people know, we will end at 12, but I will stay behind and answer any more questions, because I always like to try to simulate a real person event. Are full sentences preferred over bullet points? You do not need full sentences. You do not have to use the I. You can leave out the I. These are phrases. These are CAR phrases. Okay. So now let's take a look at what's happening here. On the left-hand side is your typical CV. And we know what CVs are. You've applied for scholarships with it. You're applying for various academic positions for it. It's just what you've done, the action items, all your publications, student council president. You start with an action verb. Right? Now let's look at the right-hand side, and let's just look at the middle one here. To build community, right? So that's the context. Why did you do this? The action you took spearheaded interdepartmental collaboration with 8 other student councils to host first ever undergrad mentorship program. And then what was the result? Resulting in 56 students finding professional mentors over 3 years. So this is a 3-year project distilled down into 1 CAR statement, and it tells an impact on what you did, why you did it, and what was the result that came out of it. So If you're applying for a job that's looking for, we want a community builder, we want someone that can take leadership and bring people together, this is a CAR statement that you want to write. Now, if you're applying for jobs that are in different sectors, yes, we will be sharing these slides. If you're in different sectors, then you may have 2 or 3 different resumes. One resume is for your research jobs. Another resume, if you belong in outreach, could be your outreach communication jobs. And another resume may be for something else. Maybe you're interested in science policy. So the CAR statements on your resume are going to be different depending on the job that you're going to apply for. So you should have all 3 of these kind of different flavors. They're all telling the same story of who you are, but different because the employers are looking for different things. They should all be ready to go. So if someone calls you on a moment's notice and say, hey, do you have a resume ready to go for an R&D position, you can be ready to go with that. Okay, so then we're going to turn this over to you and let's practice a CAR statement. So again, if you're A through L, you're going to be on the first doc, M through Z on the second doc. And if you cannot access the doc for some reason, and I will re-put the docs in the chat, you can put your CAR statement in the chat. Okay, so let me just orient myself here. Okay, so A through L, you are there, and now you are in column F. So you want to say, okay, what is the verb that you want to highlight? So think about the job that you want to have and what are they looking for? What is a PI looking for? What is med school looking for? What is the biotech job looking for? What do you imagine them to be looking for? So that's a verb that you want to highlight, whether it's teamwork or technical skill, whatever that is. And then I want you to write a CAR statement tailored towards that verb that you want to highlight. And I'll give you a few minutes to do that. And M through Z. Natasha, I think someone's asking to be a panelist.
I just sent it to Nicole because I can't get her to panelist.
Okay. And if for some reason you're having technical issues, if you can't get on the sheet for some reason, you can add the verb you want to highlight and your CAR statement in the chat so we can see that. Thank you all. And I'll wait a few minutes before people, as I see the CAR statements coming in. And what I'll do is I will leave an example of these CAR statements on the screen so you can model maybe yours with those if you like. And let me jump over to the sheet so I can see how people are doing. I'm going to do that. While people are doing that, let me see if there's any questions that I didn't answer. Is it Mikhail or Michael? Do you want to expand on your question? The right example is the cart. Yes, so the right side are CAR statement examples, yes. Okay. I think I got everyone's question, but if for some reason I missed your question, if you can just copy and paste it back into the chat, that would be helpful. I'm trying to meander through all the questions. Well, thanks for joining, Raha. Yes, there will be a recording. Natasha will send it out to everybody. Thanks for joining. Okay. You put job shadowing experiences on your resume if you don't have any other relevant experience. You could put a job shadowing on there, but write what you got out of that job shadowing. It's not enough to say, oh, I job shadowed a physician. Okay, well then what did you get out of that? What did you learn? What skills did you gain? That sort of thing. And how can I compete as a mature student having graduated years ago? I have lots of life experience to describe, but no current academic or professional references. I don't think it matters when you graduated. You're talking about life experiences, that's fine. You may want to go with what's called a functional resume as opposed to a chronological resume. So a functional resume, you're looking at different competencies and you want to, instead of making it year by year what happened, you want to section it off as the core competency the job is looking for, whether it's leadership or communication. You're going to section off how you develop those skills. Are there any guidelines, templates, to reaching out to people on LinkedIn for informational interview? There's actually a guideline template in the Science Careers IDP that I sent out on how you reach out to people. But if it's through LinkedIn, you just message them on LinkedIn, and the common courtesy is giving them about 2 weeks to wait to respond to you. And then if they don't respond to you in 2 weeks, you can do a gentle follow-up. And if no answer, then that's it. Thanks for joining. All right. So CAR statements are not that easy. And I can see that, it's not something that we're used to. And it's not something that many people have been taught. Whereas, I had a story where a PhD fellow friend of mine, he did a PhD, 4 publications. He said, oh yeah, I'm good here. I should be able to get a job. And he was sending out his CVs in just the regular CV way. And he wasn't getting any calls. And he's like, why is this not happening? So when he asked his business friends and they told him the CAR statement method, he quickly changed his resume to that. And within months, he had many job offers. Because now you're telling a story of the impact you made. So the CAR statement is not that easy. So what I'll do, just in the interest of time, you can fill out the CAR statement, and I'm actually going to go through all these CAR statements and give feedback on all of them. And if you want your CAR statement feedback on, just put something on there, let's say by the end of today. So by midnight tonight, if you put a CAR statement there, I will have feedback on the next column by tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Okay, so if you want to see it, this document will just stay here. It's live, just so that if people have 1 o'clock classes that they need to get to. And I do have to finish up a few other things in my slides, but thank you for filling those out. I'm looking forward to reading the CAR statements. Okay, then let's go back onto my slides. one last resource slide. About that. So your action plans during your undergrad, right? So to have, you don't need to have straight A's, but for graduate school, you probably do need a B average. What are the things that you have to do for any career? Have a life, right? You can't just be a student. Like, have a life, take care of your wellness, do sports, music, whatever it is that floats your boat. Reflect on what you're doing and why you're doing it. Ask questions with informational interviews: who, what, where, when, how do they do that? Get the answers. And then try to figure out, we can set up internships, whether it's a couple hours a week or just in the summer, just to get that experience and measure your impact. Not just for yourself, but for your resume as well. And then use these concepts that we learned for anything, for the summer lab experience, for industry job or internship, graduate school. It's all the same thing, is telling people what you're interested in, how your interest aligns with theirs, and what you can offer to them. Here's some resources for you. If you are applying for an internship financially, there's the Ontario Center of Excellence, and also the SWILP program, SWILP, that's a federally funded program. They will provide internship money for you. So if you find a company that's willing to host you for the summer, they will give you your stipend or your salary. But number one resource are the people, the other World Wide Web of asking them how they got to where they are today. So I'd like to thank you for your participation and feedback. I will stay here to answer any other questions. But if you have a 12 o'clock, you are good to go. Before you go, though, I would like everyone to fill out this 4-question feedback survey, just so that we get a feel for how things went for you today. And good luck with everything. And if you have any questions, I'm here. If not, good luck. And if anyone, because you attended this seminar, if you want to have a more individual consult with me, email me at nana.lee@utoronto.ca, and we can set up a time and we can have a one-on-one chat. Crazy, huh? So thanks for coming. And I will look at these questions to answer these questions. Okay, if a PI doesn't respond to you after your first email, do you send a follow-up? I would say in 2 weeks, but send a follow-up within 2 weeks. 2 months, awkward and ineffective. 2 months is a bit long. Although if this has already been, if it's been 2 months ago and you still want to follow up with them, by all means follow up with them, but it's usually give them 2 weeks. Am I available to review resumes and cover letters? So if you send me your resume and cover letter as a Word document, and you are using the CAR statements that we said today and how you write a cover letter, as we say today, then I will review for you. And I also send you, let me send you a resource video that may help you and help me as well. If you go to the GLSE YouTube playlist, I have a bunch of videos, and let me just point to which one is the best one for you. We have ads. Skip ads, please. Okay. Yeah, so if you go to Graduate Professional Development, I have a whole series of videos. If you go to video number 10, it talks about storytelling, how to read the job description. And then video number 11 talks about the resume, and video number 12 talks about the cover letters. I will share the resume one in the chat, but everything else is kind of in the same. How do I get there? I'm lost again. Sorry, having technical issues. Okay, here we go. All right, so that's the video about the, no, that's the form. Sorry. Natasha, can you put that in the chat? My video link of HPPD, because I can answer these questions. Let's see. Natasha will send you the recording if you registered. I've read that grad school requirements are about the GPA of the last 2 years, so how strong the grades in the last 2 years affect the application. Yeah, you should have at least a B for sure higher, the better, obviously. But it should be about, the focus should be about that discipline. So if you've taken biochemistry for 4 years, in the last 2 years, you did a really strong job. In the first couple of years, not too strong, that's okay. How strong from the first 2 years? So if the first year, we all struggled in the first year, so they take that into consideration. But if your last 2 years are strong, you should be okay. When sending out the first email to profs, you just want to express your interest in their lab and give a little background of yourself, right? So right away, I would say, in the letter, you would say, I bring my 4 years of specialist background in U of T immunology or U of T pharmacology, and my skills and people skills, and how you have those people skills, and a research interest in peroxisomal development, right? And say what you would want to do for them, like right away. You don't want to go onto a whole section on who you are and what makes you tick and why you got that. They don't want to read that right away. They want to read, oh, he or she knows how they can help my lab. Okay, so not a lot of on the background, just like one line of what you're bringing to them. Paragraphs of the cover letter should be about 3 paragraphs. The first is the opening, what you're bringing, how you're bringing it. And the middle section is really talking about their research, really talking about their company, really talking about how you hope to help with their research or their company. People say, well, I'm just second year, third year. How can I write what I can help with? Read their papers and then figure out, okay, I really am interested in this part of their research. This is what I want to be involved with. Right? They may not hire you to do that project that you propose, but they will look at your application because they see, oh, they've read my papers. This student has read my paper. They've gone into this, even the second step of proposing a project, which is bonus points. I want to talk to them because now they've shown me, they've not just talked about they have creativity, but they've shown me that they have creativity and original thought. And then the third paragraph is a closing. Thank you for your time and consideration. Should you have any questions, please contact me at this number, this email. Hope to be seeing you, something like that. Do you need to have led your own research project to get into grad school, or taking lab courses and getting summer research enough? You do not have to have led your own research project. Taking the lab courses, the summer research should be more than enough. Yeah. Would you mind sending your email address? Oh yeah, sure. No problems there. It's nana.lee@newtoronto.ca. Okay, Manal, you can unmute yourself. Yes, go ahead.
Hello.
Hi.
So my question is, I'm applying for a specific position at Lunenfeld, but the problem with that is that the application requires us to write a single cover letter and resume for 3 different labs. So I don't understand how you can do that, because it's supposed to be tailored to every lab. So what would your advice be on that?
Yeah, so do you have an idea of which 3 labs you want to work for?
Yes.
Okay, so then I would address all 3 of those labs in that one cover letter. Right, so if you think about it, the typical student, they're going to apply saying, I want experience in these preferred labs, but they're not going to go and read their papers. They're not going to go, but they might, but they're not going to go writing in their cover letter. So if you, when you're applying, you say, if I were chosen to be in so-and-so's lab, this is what I want to be doing. In this lab, I want to be doing this. And in this lab, I want to be doing this.
Okay.
That's the way I would do it. And no one else is going to be doing that except for people that attended this workshop. And then the supervisors are going to say, wow, they really did the research and they really want to be here.
Okay. And but this cover letter would be then a little longer than like most cover letters, like your general cover, because this is like for 3 labs, right? So that's
right.
okay.
So I would probably do a short paragraph for each of those labs. Yeah. So you want to, and the thing is, scientists like succinct writers. So if you can demonstrate why you want to work in a lab in 3 or 4 sentences, power to you.
Okay. And one last question. How would I go on about the resume then? Because 2 of my labs are related to epigenetics and more like cancer biology, while the third one is that's more like developmental biology in neuroscience, and the other two are, yeah, not neuroscience related.
Yeah, your resume is going to be the same because it's still for a research position.
Okay.
You don't need to tweak it for each different topic of research. You only need to tweak it as for a discipline or for a different industry. Like if you're telling me you want to apply for a lab, but also for science outreach, then you need different resumes.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Let's see if there are any other questions. Alan, you want to unmute yourself, ask your question? Alan? Is Alan still here? And so he asks, how does one get into an individual research project for 4th year? So if your 4th year is upcoming, there are 2 ways. You can apply for a summer studentship, a summer research position, and then your PI may say, hey, you can very well stay on as a project student. So there is actually a course number behind the 4th year project, and the course number differs for each department. Or if they feel you can work there as a technician because you did a great job in the summer, they may hire you. But most of the time, it's whatever lab you worked on in the summer, they will either take you on or give a recommendation on what other lab you worked on. Now, if you're not going to do a summer research project, then you should start now finding professors that are open to accepting 4th year research projects and do the informational interviews right now in the next couple of months.
Hi, sorry. I didn't realize I was supposed to unmute my mic to ask the question. Thank you so much for responding. I just had one more question in regards to a resume. And that's for some people who haven't necessarily gotten, let's say a lab research position, but they have relevant coursework. Would you recommend valuing that in a resume over, let's say, volunteer experience at a hospital? Like what would be more valuable to put on that resume? Because I know that I've had other people mention you should try and really keep your resume to 1 page. Like you don't want it to be too much for the employer to read. So my question would be, when applying to a lab position for the summer or emailing a PI or a professor, is having the relevant coursework more important for the lab, or would volunteer experience and showing those soft skills be more important, do you think?
Yeah, good question, Alan. So 1 page resume, if written effectively, you can include all those things. So I've seen postdocs with 5 years experience put everything on 1 page. And this tells people that you can write succinctly and to the point, but also tell your impact. So then how do you do this? So for you, if you want to showcase that you've taken the lab course for a certain program, now, if you're applying, let's say, to a U of T professor, they pretty much know what it takes to become. So what major are you in, Alan?
I'm in human bio.
Human bio, okay. So they know the human bio courses that you're taking, right? Hopefully, right? But if you want to highlight, let's say you took a molecular genetics course and they're a molecular genetics lab, under your education section, you can write human bio major, and then you can highlight that course that's relevant to their work and what you got out of that course and what, it's more important. Like, yes, you can write your grade down there, but they're getting your transcripts anyway. So what I would write there is, if you took a course, I'll give you an example. There's a student who took a course and then the TA approached her and said, could I use your answers as a model answers for next year because it was such a great report, right? So now this is beyond the transcript. This is, again, that meaningful engagement you're having with your TAs. This is the kind of the story that you want to write. Or if they ask you to come back to be a peer mentor, right? So if any of those type of experiences happen, that's what you want to write. Other than that, you want to just write, here's the course you took and what you took away, and highlight those skills that's also incorporated into that, into their work, right? No more than 1 line for that. And then with the volunteering, if you found that impactful, if you learned something from it, and it's not just volunteered, then definitely have that. Right? So I'll give you an example of that too. A student wrote just 1 line, volunteered at Toronto General Hospital 4 years. And I asked him, I said, tell me about the story when you volunteered here. What did you do? And he said, well, I started working at a reception, and then I realized every Friday there was a music program and people were coming in and playing music. But then there were some bedridden patients that couldn't come. Thanks for coming, Isabella. That couldn't come to the music program. So, and I knew some music friends, and I asked them, can you come every other Friday and play for those patients that could not come to the lounge because they were just physically stuck in their room? Can you play for them? And he had a music program, every week, every Friday, his friends would come in and play for these patients, and it really affected their well-being. I said, why didn't you write this on your resume? Right. So now it's to build musical community, to increase wellness among patients. This is their car statement, to increase wellness among patients. Spearheaded and implemented a in-person music program for patients with accessibility needs, resulting in 300 patients that received in bed music experience, right? So now you're telling the story of the impact you made as a volunteer. So that's what you want to showcase in any of the stories that you bring.
Okay, that really helps. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Last one, sorry, I mean to take up other people's questions.
Go ahead.
Is if I had more experience volunteering and community involvement in high school, is that still relevant for like a university application for like a research position, or trying to strive away from that?
Yeah, so I get this question all the time. How far do you go back? You want to go far back as it just depends how impactful that work was. Let's say you started a group in high school and that group is still going on. You're going to include it. Let's say you won a gold medal when you were 15 Olympics. It will be on your resume for the rest of your life. Right? So try not to think about, there's like this chronological limit. Think about what was the impact you made, and are you really proud of that work? And does it showcase your leadership skills? You can have the title of being student council president, but if you just took last year's blueprint and just did a replay, that doesn't really showcase leadership skills. Like true leadership skills is you took last year's blueprint, you surveyed the students, found new initiatives, made new programs. And if that new program is still existing today, oh yes, I want to hear about that. Okay. So it's about impact, not just necessarily chronological.
Great, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Katie, do you want to unmute yourself? She's still here? Katie Lloyd-Smith? Oh, Katie can't. Okay, so let me just, so Katie asked, to enroll in a U of T research course, do I need to reach out to a professor first, or are we assigned to one when we enroll? That's a very good question. And sometimes it depends on the department, and sometimes it depends on the supervisor. So what I would do, just like I said, just take their life into your own hands, right? So if there is a supervisor or professor that you really want to work for, contact them. Contact them and say, I'm interested in working, and have that conversation. And then it'll be a no-brainer when you apply for that course, because the supervisor will tell the people in the office, say, I really want Katie in my lab. Okay, so just reach out. People, reach out to people. Courtney, you want to unmute yourself?
Sure. I think my question is actually really similar to Katie's, just a slightly different context.
Uh-huh.
So does the same answer apply? I was just wondering about applying to
Okay.
master's programs. It says that they have a rotation system. So I was kind of assuming that you just apply to the department and then like rather than contacting supervisors first, but.
Yeah, so for the, if the department has a rotation system, then you just apply to the department. And then after you get into the department, then they're going to ask you, who is your preference? right? So you're for your first rotation, and then they ask you after your first rotation or in the middle of your first rotation, then they'll ask who would you like to go next, right? So for graduate studies, yes, it's good to kind of do the informational interview before, just to see if you actually, would want to work for that individual or want to be in the lab. But if you know that's the department you want to work for, once you're in, you're going to have access to all of these different professors. So it really depends on, a few things. If you've already decided, oh, I definitely want to work for this person, then you may want to talk to them, a year before or the summer before. But having said that, I know many students that go into a rotation system thinking that they want to work for a PI1, but then after their rotation, they say, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to change my mind and go to PI2. Whether it's because it was the subject matter or because of the way the lab ran and it just fit you better, but you're not going to know until you're actually in. So that's the difference between finding a research program for undergraduate and a graduate program. Undergraduate, you're there for a term, like a summer, 1 year. So you should reach out to people and figure out what that's all about. But for a graduate program, if they do have rotations, I would say, just apply to the department and then figure out who your top 3 would be. And then from there you can choose.
Okay, awesome. But it would still be appropriate, you think, to reach out for informational interviews ahead of time?
Sure, I would reach out, maybe to graduate students. Just go on the lab webpage and say, hey, I'm thinking of applying for MoGen. Can I have an information interview over coffee or something? And then they'll be more than happy to do that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, any other questions? All right. Pranav, is that how you say it?
Yes. Hi, Dr. Lee. So my question is more related to resumes, and I believe I have this really bad habit of when I'm applying to jobs or positions that I necessarily don't have expansive experience in. So for example, I'm applying to a marketing role. I have one experience, or I guess 1.5, where I have this position where I've worked with social media, and I have this bad habit of not being able to condense my resume down to one page because I believe my other experiences may have something that they might see that would be applicable to the role that I'm applying for. Do you have any tips on reducing that?
Yeah, usually that's the most difficult thing to do, is distilling it down to one page appropriate for the job. So how do you do that effectively is to really read the job description. So some people say, well, they may want someone that can read French, but if it doesn't say they want a bilingual person, there's no need to put French in there. Okay, so it's to really read the job description and figure out how you're going to showcase all your wonderful skills that you have onto that one page, because they're also looking for people that can communicate effectively. And by showing that you can put everything on one page that's relevant to the job, and it's very hard, you've already demonstrated that you can communicate. So if you're looking for, you're saying marketing roles, is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah, marketing. So, and you say you have about 1 or 1.5 experience in that role. Talk about those for sure, the CAR statements and in the marketing roles that you've already had. But then if you think, okay, what else is in the job description? Right? They may say communication skills, teamwork skills, people skills. Maybe it's a scientific firm and they want some science background. So then you want to take all these other things that you've done and create CAR statements that revolve around, let's say, the teamwork skills or the leadership skills, right? And like I talked about in the CAR statement example, they took a 3-year project and put it down into one CAR statement. So if you are a good, succinct writer, it's definitely possible. So if you want, Pranav, just write a sample resume and send it over and I can help you out.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I had another question. Would you say an effective resume would have a separate section listing sort of soft skills or other I guess, skills. So for example, like being able to navigate certain softwares, would you say an effective resume would have that sort of section, or would that be accurately represented in your CAR statement?
Yeah, so for technical skills, hold on a second, I have to charge in my laptop. So for technical skills, you're going to have a list of relevant skills at the bottom of your resume. So relevant skills. And if the job description asks for it, let's say SAS or Python or R or any of these softwares that you're into, then you just list them. You just list like one at a time, 1, 2, 3, whatever technical pertinent skills they're asking for. Now, if they're saying communication, you're not going to write communication skills under pertinent skills because they're not hard technical skills. The core competency skills, they should just float up to the top as you write your CAR statements, right? That TED Talk story that I told about, that just tells me that this person can put a group together, a presentation together, and move people just on that story alone. So the only thing you write in under pertinent skills is the technical hard skills that the job description is asking for.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, the next question. Oh, we can find the recording. Natasha will post it in the GLSC YouTube website, and she'll also send it to people. Next question. If I'm trying to email and send cover letters to several profs, how personalized should the letter be? Can I have some aspects in the letter that are similar, like almost copy and paste? Okay, so what can you copy and paste from one prof to the next prof is your header, right? Your name, your email, and all that stuff. The salutation will be different. The first maybe 2-3 lines of what you're bringing. So I'm bringing my biochemistry specialist background, my X number of years of leadership. That's it. And maybe the third paragraph of thank you for your consideration and time. So after you have, I bring this and this to your lab investigating whatever, that is specific to that PI, that's specific to that prof. So the only thing that you can copy and paste is probably that first line, what you're bringing. But even that part, the interest of the paper you read is very different for each lab. The middle section is going to be tailored towards that lab. You will not have anything except for maybe if you're bringing a certain skill, whether it's flow cytometry or X-ray crystallography, and your signature is copy and paste. Now, what are technical hard skills be included when writing appropriate courses useful for that job in a separate section for softs, and then a separate section. Yeah, so it depends. So if you're applying for a job, people in the outside world, they don't know what your courses are entailed. Like a professor may know what a course covers if they taught that course or if they're in that department. So if they knew, okay, if you took flow cytometry 101, okay, they know that you know how to do flow cytometry. But sometimes these courses are just giving intro to immunology, and a person in the biotech industry, they're not going to know that you know how to do flow cytometry. So it would be listed under as technical or pertinent skills, flow cytometry, comma, whatnot. And a separate section for soft skills, I wouldn't have a separate section for soft skills because it should just, because anyone can write down they have communication skills. I want to see proof that they have communication skills, and the proof is in your CAR statement. So it's not, I wouldn't write any soft skills in the list anywhere.
So how I usually, this is a follow-up question to that. So how I usually write resume is, so I write the course name and then a colon, and I write whatever I've learned, like the hard skills, for instance, PCR or proteomics, transcriptomics or whatever. And yeah, so I write all the techniques I've learned, and then the softs, there's an award section where I just have one award, but then there are soft skills where I talk about my experience as well. So like teamwork, I write like a soft skill colon, captained for a football team for like 3 years or whatever. So this is how I go about it. So I incorporate soft skills and experience together. Is that the right way to go about it?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people do that. As someone reading the resume, I try not, I'd rather just if you were the football, the coach of the football team, I'd rather just see that story as opposed to saying I have leadership skills because I was the coach of the football team. Right? It's just, I want to see the story. Okay, so you are the coach, you organize practices, you organize team leadership, team spirit, and you led your team to victory or something. So having that story demonstrates leadership as opposed to you telling me that you have leadership.
So experience colon soft skills, basically, not soft skills colon experience.
Yeah, I wouldn't even have that heading. Just call it experience.
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Any others for the resume? Okay. Katie asks, would you write skills you learned in a lab and technical skills for resume lab resumes? Yes. So if the lab is asking for, let's say, techniques in doing Western blotting and you've learned it in the current lab, then you're going to be writing that down under pertinent skills. Any lab skills that you may want to highlight. Okay. Any other questions? Did we get everyone's questions? And since there's 18 of you, feel free to just unmute yourself if you have any other questions. Right. Well, if there are no more questions, I'll be hanging around until people are not. Your question.
Yep. Sorry about that. So I had a question about awards. And would you say that awards should require a description? So, for example, what it took to achieve that award or the qualifications?
Yes, especially if you're applying for something where, outside of the University of Toronto community, no one knows what these awards are. The Gordon Cressy Leadership Award, what is that, right? So if you can write a little bit, have the award, if there's a monetary value, and also under it, just one line of what it was all about. And if you even know there were, 500 applicants, you were chosen, top 3 out of the 500. Then you can write that. Or if you have a scholarship, what was it for?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? How long should a cover letter generally be? It should be 1 page. But there are some instances, especially if you are applying to and I've seen this for faculty members, and if you have to write your research intent in there, then it could be 2 pages. So no more than 2 pages, but generally for everyone in this room, it would be 1 page. Any other questions? You're welcome. Well, if there are no more questions, I'm going to go back to, if you have any CAR statements in the documents that we filled out today, I will give you feedback on the column by 8 o'clock tomorrow if you put it in by midnight tonight. And if you want me to go over any of your resumes or cover letters or even have a one-on-one consultation, then feel free to contact me. And we had one more question before we left, and you disappeared. Your hand disappeared. Did I already answer your question? Oh, it was an accident. Yeah, that tends to happen. All right. Well, I wish all of you best of luck. And, I just want to say thank you to you all. Thank you for hanging in there the past 18 months to 2 years onto your studies, and, transforming your undergrad education onto a virtual platform was not easy. So thank you for just hanging in there. No, you're awesome. You're all awesome. And just still going for your pursuits and going for, what you want to be doing. So thanks for doing that. And thanks for taking care of you. Don't forget about you. Okay. So take care, everyone. And thanks for filling out the feedback form.